Remembering, number 3. Chapter 1, To Awake the Mission. 35,000 years ago, Homo sapiens. Many homes, villages, and cities had sprung up around the planet since the first souls of the divine families of good had incarnated into physical body suits. After the misstep of the fall, outsiders had extended and strengthened their domination. At first, the ancient ones of the mission were in couples, then in small groups in various places on the planet. Eventually, more gathered and larger groups formed. Couples became communities, became villages, and then cities. Tyre was one such city. The city's instability had brought governmental policies into question. Passionate crowds had roamed their streets during the past week. Citizens with their wide range of opinions clashed and fought. Mobs ruled the outlying districts with no thought of compassion or penance. Contrary to an average day, this afternoon was remaining relatively calm. The Riker, the policing authorities of the city government, filled the area surrounding the council hall. The Greater Council had met to debate and decide possible solutions. Riots and demonstrations were expected, therefore, a show of Riker force. During early mission times after the fall, there had been recurring cycles of imbalance. It was imbalance within families, villages, towns, and the cities, and they had periodic stable growth followed by significant eruptions into conflict, fear, and anger. The explosion demolished much of what had been built. Each chaotic situation created energy ripples, and those energy waves caused a vulnerability that affected everyone, including any off-planet societies in proximity to the Earth. Many situations and solutions were in place to minimize the impact. The current group sent to help was a consortium of galactic family members. Extending from their off-planet homes, they came in light bodies as a temporary force. They hoped to reach out, inspire, and awaken the original mission members to their divine harmonic and purpose. Myra was a member of this consortium. In her physical bodysuit, substantial enough to move her soul in Earth's dense environment, she stood behind the grandiose columns of the great Tyrian Council Hall. Her partner, Tuma, wrapped his arm around her waist. In all of Earth's history, there had not been a more momentous time, and this day was the pinnacle. She regarded the scene before her. Every particle of her light body was alert as Myra stood silently sipping her beverage. Myra had often participated in balancing the energy fields emanating from the Earth. The agenda of the consortium outreach was different. As guests from the region of the seventh world, they could walk lightly among humanity, remind them of their divinity and original plan, and could not vote or require changes. Today, Dana, a spokesperson for the consortium group, had proposed to the council that they be allowed to extend their visit. The outreach group was prepared to stay longer to begin teaching the citizens of Tyre. Those who had a vested interest in the domination agendas of the parasitic outsiders were outraged, inciting conflicts and riots. Suddenly, shouts, followed by a loud, sharp clashes, came from the street, just a stone's throw from the court area. A small group at the edge of the court's garden hurled stones toward the crowd and then hurried into a small enclosure of trees. Myra moved closer to Tuma as they watched the police converge on the crowd with clubs and swords. The convergence forced the demonstrators to move to their locations and other locations or to break up and retreat. The protesting citizens fled into the alleyway. Emotions had even erupted among the council during the discussions, and anxiety filled the air of the council grounds. Myra reacted to the disruptive energies, the whispered tones, animated gestures, and solemn, angry faces by moving closer to Tuma. She closed her eyes, worked silently with their teams in the unseen world to transform the heaviness. Unlike the Tyrians' desensitized bodies, the vibrations of the light bodies on the mission were keen. They felt the subtlest energy disruptions. The essence of their divine home flowed through each of them. It carried information within the field of one, a sense of love that kept them connected and stable. With the uninterrupted flow between those on mission, what one experienced, all experienced. What enriched one was enriching to all and created a strong sense of oneness. Myra knew that it was critical to the team Gotta go back. That each member clear any hint of the dense negative energy quickly. Otherwise, Earth's energy density would cover the team's subtle vibrational breath and endanger them as it had the Earth's. Because of the artificial systems of the Earth cultures, the energy flow from home had long ago become limited and disjointed. This disruption, as well as the intentional broadcasting from the outsiders, were reasons for the recurring imbalance within the original mission force. Myra turned to Tuma. He was scanning the garden and the streets, occasionally looking at the doors of the council hall. When he sensed her watching him, he turned and smiled. "I'm thinking about the excitement we had about this planet," she said softly. "Do you remember how carefully the planning council considered ideas to get our family out from under the outsider parasitic ownership?" Tuma nodded. "How ironic it is that here we are, still facing the same situation, still entrapped by those outsiders committed to usury, greed, and power, regardless of its cost to our family." "Ironic and sad," Tuma replied. "Just imagine where our family would be now if our original plan had succeeded. If our first families had been able to identify and remove the parasitics with just a command, simply by the right to command." Tuma shook his head. "It was a magnificent plan." "Well, this would not be happening," Myra said, gesturing to the streets. "Nor would the consortium outreach on this debate," added Tuma. "How can we hope to awaken the consciousness of our families? They are trapped in bodysuits manufactured and owned by the parasitic outsiders. No one knows what level of awareness will be needed within the psyche of our mission members to counteract the re-engineered system, or if it is even possible." Sensing his weariness, Myra stepped closer to gather his hands in hers to shift the energy. Chapter 2. Parasitic Outsiders Made Visible. Myra heard voices coming from the streets and turned from Tuma. The sounds were far away at first and then coming closer. The chanting grew louder and louder until she could hear the words, "Send them home, send them home, send them home." A few within the council gardens moved together and nodded as if in agreement with the chant. They turned to look at the various groups of those on this consortium mission, including Tuma and Myra. She felt energy prickle up her arms, and she recognized the stickiness of the outsider's presence. Myra shook the energy cloud off and turned toward the sounds of the streets. Myra was not frightened as much as intrigued. Often the parasitic outsiders who worked to whip up the citizens were hidden. Here one was out in the open, acting in the light of day, one she could observe. So she closed her eyes. By shifting her etheric vision, Myra could see what lay hidden behind his form in the shadows. Unseen by the citizens of Tyre, indeed all Earth inhabitants, there they were, the outsiders. Visible because of her ability to see other vibrational regions, they appeared dark, craven, evil, and hungry. They were always after more of the energy that was the Ancient One's breath of life. The outsiders had attached themselves at various energy points to the bodysuit of this young man. It was they who were directing his actions. At times, she saw one slip into the young man's body and speak words through his mouth. He was so possessed of these beings that they took turns moving in and out of his body. Some would look out through his eyes, and she saw emptiness, eyes lacking emotion or compassion. Myra looked around and could see crowds of these hidden outsiders. Their dark, sticky energy frequencies of domination and deceit flowed throughout those in the town's square. Many Tyrians responded to the vibrations by shaking their head or rubbing their eyes as if stabbed with pain. Others began jumping or running, frenzied and unfocused. Having detected the Divine Family's mission plan generations ago, the outsiders had used upheaval and divisiveness to prevent their identification and removal. The parasitics overlaid devices, implanted control mechanisms, and initiated whatever was necessary to stop the plan. Those outsiders of domination and control had used their influences to keep Tyrians fearful, minimized, and enslaved. Then they could use them at will. As Myra looked around the chanting crowd, she saw parasitic attached to others, and the back of her neck prickled. Tuma moved, pulling her close to stand between her and the crowd, and she felt a crowd group shudder. Tuma closed his eyes. Myra felt his attention centering, and the teams from their spiritual homes blocking the heavy vibrations. She felt the energy lessening and glanced up into Tuma's eyes. How she loved him. Together, they sealed the parasitic energies away from the consortium group and dissolved the frequencies before they could impact their energy fields. Tuma kissed the top of her head, but they both sensed the growing restlessness. Myra shifted her vision and opened her eyes. She turned to look out over the crowd gathered in the council gardens. She knew many of the assembled citizens in physical bodies. They were the family members who had initially volunteered for this Earth mission, the Ancient Ones. She sensed their powerlessness, frustration, and fear. The Earth had been in the clouds of escalating negativity since the discovery of their plan. The entrapping web of parasitic systems included the Tyrians. Myra knew that the way back to their original awareness of Earth purpose would require great determination. Would they remember that within human experience, individuals in physical bodysuits were the only ones who could end the domination? Would they wake up and know that the future, the life or death of the greater family, rested solely with individual voice? She wondered, as did Tuma, if there was enough personal fire left to awaken. Growing restless, Myra placed her cup on a tiny, small garden table and smiled at Tuma as she moved away from him. Maybe the fact that the council's deliberations were taking so long was helpful. There had been a vigorous debate after the proposal from the mission's high priestess, Dana. Power and greed were central to the life of most who set policy in Tyre. Individuals aligned to control fostered fear and discord. In this culture, outsiders had free reign. The proposal to awaken the mission would end their control. One of the chief ministers, Minister Lucas, was especially outraged with Dana's proposal. Myra had no doubt Lucas was ruled by the outsiders, similar to the parasitics she had seen in the street conflict. At times, she had seen their empty, damp eyes through his. Myra rocked over to a garden bench where she could sit and watch the doors of the council chambers. Thinking about the morning, Dana's speech came to mind. Dana's plan was to spark whatever in Tyrians' memories were not dulled by negativity or locked into denial. Dana's words had transfixed the council. She gave no hint that she was aware of the forces against her, indeed, against all of them. However, those on consortium outreach knew that her words would trigger anger within those that the parasitics controlled. The consortium continually dissipated the energy that was disrupted during Dana's presentation and the following council debates. Dana had spoken clearly. We trusted the courageous and creative nature of good within you, our galactic family members. You volunteered, you gave your word. From a deep love and vision, you heard the plan and said, yes. You knew that Earth was not intended to be a place for domination or duality or war. Earth was not to be a place for birthing volunteers into outsiders' bondage. Considerable attention was given to create a plan to remove such influences. In the beginning, we knew you had the strength and determination to accomplish this Earth mission. Those in regions of your divine homes stood ready to answer your request to identify and remove the outsiders, their seeds and attachments. Designing systems for thriving from the life force of all possibility of good, while identifying outsider constrictions, was to be in place before expanding birth. Had that been accomplished, today, Tyre would be a city of joy and beauty. Several members of the Earth Council had nodded. Others flashed with anger. The heavy frequencies of anxiety and doubt rippled through the hall. It darkened the room until those on the consortium outreach cleared it. Dana had turned, her hand sweeping to include all in the council as she said, you are the leaders. Are you living according to your commitment to that divine plan? Then she paused. By divine decree, an unbreakable law, this sphere will always cause imprints in the unseen, such as word and thought, and they will emerge into a form. The law assures that all hidden energies will come to be seen and experienced. The law does not determine if the imprint is one from which good will emerge, or if the concept was planned by outsiders to control. Imprints will manifest. You can help your people awaken and take back their voice to discern and then demand. They can transform fear and break free of control. Their right is to live on this planet in abundance, joy, and free will. We offer to stay and help you awaken the consciousness of truth and purpose and clarity. Myra sighed at the memory. Then an energy shift in the collective field jarred her back to the present moment. She looked out over the people gathered in the courtyard. The doors of the council's chambers were being pushed open. Those of the Earth Council moved into the chamber. The robed members filed down the corridor, across the yard, and into the great hall. Those who had wandered into hallways or gardens quickly moved back to their places within the hall. Myra looked at Tuma. Glancing past him, she noticed that even disruptions in the street had halted. Fists dropped to sides, quiet whispers replaced shouts. All attention was on the council members. The tall young man who had stirred the crowds moved to stand close to the garden enclosure. His previous frenzy replaced with silence, confusion showing on his face. Myra moved to walk in with Tuma. "Do you think they will be willing to let us stay and mentor them?" she whispered to Tuma. He tilted his head with raised eyebrows, as if to indicate that he thought it was not likely. Stay and assist the transition, or go back to their home. That is what had been decided. Everyone stood. The council members seated themselves in the dais, facing those in audience. Veiled, stoic faces hid any clues as to the outcome of the vote. The leader, Gyra, rose. He was a large man. Myra had come to appreciate his sensitivity to the problems within Tyre. He walked with awareness and was accustomed to political negotiations. Use of his many gifts had earned him a place of respect among those on outreach mission. What will come next?